Today's episode is brought to you by your Midland Emergency Radio. When you need battery-powered or wind-up powered radio during tornadoes, you can use this to listen to the Weather Channel.
I wish I would have had that. The radio would have been nice, but I used I have Spotify playlists downloaded, so I use those for obviously like my battery's not going to last very long if I'm doing that. But
all right, what are we talking about in this episode of things?
We did low code and no code applications.
We did that was the last one. I think we talked about acceptable use policies.
I feel like we've talked about AI a lot this season.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily not want to talk about AI, but I do feel like we've talked about it a lot this season.
I do feel that a lot of companies are using AI. A lot of employees are using AI.
So you
not
think
all, but a lot
of shadow IT going on.
I think there's a huge amount of shadow IT. And some companies just don't know about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's put ourselves in their shoes for a minute. We become aware that some of our employees are using AI tools. We have tools that have AI features. We haven't purchased any of the AI features for those tools, but we know people are starting to kind of get around them, either using personal accounts for the same tools or using other tools for their work, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of whether or not we have a policy about using confidential company information, I feel like that is one of the things, and this is something we dealt with long before AI as well, right? If your employees are going around and doing work things on non-work tools, that usually means you have a gap in your environment.
Yes, yeah. And a lot of those gaps exist without you knowing. If a client team starts, picks up a new client and needs to do XYZ and it's not in Office 365 or Google Workspace, then they're gonna, look for whatever tool it is that's gonna give them the features they want, and that might not come through the traditional IT support ticket that I need XYZ installed on my, Windows NT4 workstation so I can do this job. It's all,
it almost feels archaic.
Yeah, it's all click. OAuth into everything.
Account.
Yeah. So,
I don't know. I think we're sort of back to where we started however many years ago that was, right? But it's a new type of technology now that we're dealing with. 1 second. There's a siren.
Yeah. AI will take that out.
Thanks, Colin. I actually don't know if we're using AI to edit this podcast. It's a good question. We should ask our editor.
I'll have to look, and this is for disclaimer. This is recorded in Riverside, so I'll have to see what is. I know they do have some
do they really?
new fancy features that allow you to do certain things. Put your name, cool. under your description, etc., under your image.
Yeah, that's true. And everything is coming out with some kind of AI tooling, which I think is fascinating. Partly because I can't imagine. So AI, by all descriptions, is expensive to run. And I find it interesting how many tools are implementing it despite that expense.
Yes, yeah. The compute power that it takes to run it and run all those NVIDIA, whatever they are, GP4 chips, TP, whatever chips. I don't know. I don't keep up with the chip cards side of things. Yeah. To run anything. But yeah, it is on the computational side, it is very, very expensive. That's why, Microsoft and Google Workspace are charging about the sticker price is about $30 per user per month for their AI features, not because they want to make a huge amount of profit, and obviously
But
they naturally
because like
they,
it's
they are,
very
but
expensive for them.
there is an associated cost with it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think those costs will exist with all of those other companies that are spinning up or using cloud services, whoever they're from, to build their models. But, they will get investor funding, because it is seen as that land grab opportunity to, grab a huge piece of this pie that everybody's using.
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. Well, and I think Microsoft is an interesting case too, because they have a number of AI features that are available for free. Google has some, but they're limited. Yeah, like I guess the chatbot options are, I would say, more limited on Google than they are on Microsoft. Like, I don't know
Okay.
if you've used the Bing or Copilot, but it's
I have not.
basically unlimited.
I am on Windows 10 at the moment. Sometimes it pops up and oh yeah, there's Copilot. It's sitting there at the bottom of the screen, waiting to be clicked on. Haven't utilized it. I'm rarely on this Windows 11 laptop. Normally on a Chromebook.
I was gonna say, yeah, I know. It depends a lot on your device, but because when we showed off our various creations last season?
Image wise.
Yeah. So one of the things that I talked about was the Bing image creator, which is now part of Copilot, but it's unlimited. You can do as many as you want a day.
Curious. Okay.
Which I've used a lot of different generators, right? And even ChatGPT, the model that's free is the one that can't do like real-time information, like it's not accessing the real live internet. And the one you pay for is the one that accesses the real live internet. So it's interesting that like a lot of these things have these paywalls, but Microsoft has chosen to make a version that is basically unlimited.
Yeah, we can speculate.
Mm-hmm. I've heard they're being sued over it, to be fair. So
yeah, I haven't followed up on all of those stories. Obviously, Copilot is just OpenAI. It's not their own individual thing, so they are paying a pretty penny for it.
Right, exactly.
But it locks people in to that Windows 11 desktop. Maybe the Microsoft hardware that goes with it.
So it has iPhone apps. That's how I use it.
Right. Okay.
So yeah. So at least it's that. I don't know if it has Android apps. I would assume it does, but they've done a really good job at making Edge and all of that available on all platforms because I think they realized that like locking everyone into Windows was not going to work. So
yeah. The Microsoft today is very different to the Microsoft of the early 2000s or
even the 2010s.
Yeah. So they're a lot more they're a services company, I think, as opposed to just purely an OS company, an information company.
In your opinion, do you think that acquiring a centralized AI tool like Gemini or Copilot is a better bet than acquiring specialized AI tools for like very specific teams? Or
it all depends on the company and the client in question that you're working on. There's a lot of value in having one tool for everybody, whether it's Gemini for Workspace in Google Workspace or a Copilot add-on for Office 365. Mm-hmm. If you look at it, it gives everybody the same tool to use to its abilities. Makes it easier for the support team, to deploy one and manage one platform. makes your billing and licensing a lot easier. But there will be specialized tools that the creative team or the business analysts might need, and there might be a different AI tool that is better for them. And depending on the, some of the companies that colleagues that I've spoken to, they are considering having Gemini for, the content creators, but the coders, need something completely different. So they're getting something special for them, whether it's Gemini for code or another version. Mm-hmm. And then, some of the specialist sort of data analytical platforms that are out there. The name escapes me of what they were looking at, but I think it depends. If you're a small, nimble startup, you could probably go best of breed, right application for the right person. Mm-hmm. If you're, PricewaterhouseCoopers or Boeing or,
large corps.
Yeah, Comcast or, General Electric or whatever, just give Copilot or Gemini to everybody and, just make it a flat product that everybody has access to across the board rather than picking individual teams.
Interesting. I actually almost feel like the large corporations would lend themselves better to segmenting.
I think you'd probably have everybody has one or the other, and then specific teams have their, special dedicated tools. Or those companies build their own internal platforms.
Right. Their budgets also look completely different, to be fair.
Yes, and the pricing they get, they're not paying $30 per user.
Yeah, they're not
per
paying
month
list.
for one of those. If you got 100,000 users,
they're not buying their licenses by the month either.
No. So, and there'll be huge multi-year agreements. And from what I've seen, a lot of the renewals, are having these AI platforms tied into them. So, it'll be a bit, it's at this stage, there isn't, what one model doesn't fit everybody.
What are your feelings on multi-year agreements these days, Colin?
Good question.
Like we can do this from different perspectives, like different hats, if you want. I know you've had many different hats. So
I have. I've done. I historically I have had multi-year agreements. Mm-hmm. 3 is the maximum. I have.
Did you like them though? Did you want to?
I did like them. I like them for the price, and at the point, at that time, you were always tied into, if you want Google Workspace for, 50% off list price, you've got to tie in for a 3-year agreement. Whereas it'll be, 15%, discount if you only get a 1 year or whatever. I for those large scale products, I didn't mind. It does make it very difficult because you can only have a true up, you can have a true down. So and I had those licenses, during the huge growth period and didn't have a problem. I think a lot of companies have struggled with those multi-year contracts when they've had to, half their workforce.
I've been at organizations post downsizing, like joined them post downsizing, and every single one of those contracts as they come up is being slashed because like something happened during that multi-year agreement, right?
Yeah. But then I have said to some companies, not the Google Workspace or the large productivity applications that you're stuck with once you're on Office 365 or Google Workspace.
Yeah, no, you're not generally changing Office 365 a lot.
But
so
that's not what
we're talking about.
If it was Miro or Lucidchart or some of the other utility applications that are out there, they would try and tie me into a multi-year contract, and I would often say, I'll have the multi-year contract price, but on an annual term, because I would say if you try and tie me into a multi-year contract, at the end of that contract, I'm really going to think about whether I need the application and what their competition do. But
Yeah.
if it's an annual contract, I'm probably just going to keep it rolling,
Yeah, as
but
long as I don't have any immediate plans to change it, we're just gonna redo.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think how does that relate to the Gemini question for you though? Because like it is the same. Multi-year is becoming a thing yet again in order to try and get discounts on Gemini. Whereas I think like IT admins and IT managers, directors, VPs, right, are all sort of anti-multi-year. That we always like the price discount, but we don't tend to like the multi-year piece because, as you say, right, things happen. But also, if we have a 1 year, we're more likely to just renew. Like,
yes, yeah. Companies, the vendors that are selling the platform always want the stability of the locked in. We as admin, and also it means that each year you don't have to go through that contract renewal process.
Yes,
so yes,
which when you have 500 apps is ridiculous.
Yes, yeah, it's a full-time job, and it is a lot. People will, for vendors, they don't want to be renewing, every single one of their clients every year. They want them to be rolling and only do them, every 3 to 5 years or whatever. I think Gemini, the way I would look at it as it's going to be an integral, and Gemini or any AI, whether it's Copilot or another add-on, is going to be integral. Yeah. So it's end of the day, speech no longer work. To how we operate and how we use those platforms, it's not
integral.
Integral. Yeah.
I figured it out.
Yeah, it's integrated into how we use those platforms. It's not something that we're going to turn off. It's like a Google Meet or a Teams or a Word. Mm-hmm. It's just another part of the system, and it's currently added on as an additional SKU. A different product line that gets added and invoiced maybe separately. But it will become just a feature. It will be, Copilot.
Certainly to the user, it's just a feature.
It's just a feature. It's a license line item at the moment, but it is a feature, just like any new update to the applications that have come out, going from Office 97 to 2003 to 2008, whatever it was, 2013, you would just pay for those updates. And I think that's what it will eventually become.
Yeah. I think like looking a little bit big picture as we wrap up our conversation today. So we talked a little bit about how expensive it is because it's expensive to run and expensive to maintain for the providers, right? We also know that like the energy amount that AI uses is pretty extravagant. What do you think? Like, do you think these things are going to become more efficient over time, or have we kind of hit a plateau for how efficient this stuff is going to be? Because that's what's driving the price right now. Is one, the novelty, but two, the massive expense in order to run it. And so, like, do you think we're going to make progress in that area in the next few years, or are we kind of waiting a while?
I'm going to have to say, yes, we will see progress because we always do. And this, I've actually Googled it, and this reminds me of an article that came out on July 8th, 2024. This is looking at Bloomberg. Yeah. Google is no longer claiming to be carbon neutral. So,
interesting.
I think, I haven't read all of it. This article's behind a paywall. I haven't read. I'll have to find another article that I can read. But I'm sure
somebody else wrote about it.
Yeah. Fortune was talking about Google has walked back on its carbon neutral promise,
and that's not a good thing. Yeah, that's negative.
Saying emission. This is another paid wall. Everything a paid wall. Is I
have a Times subscription. I can gift you an article.
Here we go. NPR.
There we go. NPR will be free.
So And I think this is going to be the same for Microsoft and Google. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the NPR article. AI brings soaring emissions for Google and Microsoft, a major contributor to climate change. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah, it
it's not
is.
great right now. So we want to see progress in this area.
Yeah, and I think like everything, it will become more and more efficient. Google has done an awful lot of work on the efficiency of their data centers and how it was running search and how it was running their ad campaigns and how Google Workspace was operating inside their data centers. I think some of this technology and the chips being used is relatively new, and they will find new ways to reduce the impact
Yeah.
on their energy usage.
Yeah. Because I mean, the bottom line is that it's here and it's not avoidable anymore, right? Like we as humanity have been waiting for a technological advance like this for decades, potentially even
Yeah,
100 years or more, right? Like this is the science fiction come to life sort of deal. Like it's not going away. But the question is like, how do we fit this technology advancement into the world that we're living in right now, which is we need to reduce our carbon emissions and we need to find ways to be more efficient with our energy usage.
yeah. People will have to start reusing their prompts instead of creating new ones. It'll be recycled. Um, Townships will come around and
Try
collect
to
our
make your
prompts
prompts
at the
as
end of the
generic
week.
as possible so you can reuse them
Yeah,
later.
yeah. Well,
I don't
maybe
think
there
it
will
works that
be.
way.
I know it's almost like in text messages, people became very efficient with language because you could only send like 146 characters in a
Mm-hmm.
text message, so that's why you had ended up all of the text shorthand. So maybe there will be an adjustment because there always has been. Steam engines were a
Yeah.
great way for us to ship stuff around, but it used huge amounts of coal, created tons and tons of pollution from the smoke, and we
Mm-hmm.
got better with how we do that. There will be other enhancements and improvements with how
And actually, it
AI.
might be a driving factor for renewable energy to like really pick up steam because the need for it will be higher than it was, and companies like Google and Microsoft, as they attempt to become carbon neutral again, and attempt to make themselves more efficient and attempt to lower their own costs, will invest heavily in these technologies, which is something that we need, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we need to be able to reach a critical mass, which involves investment. But okay,
Yeah, yeah.
well, another episode in the bag. Thanks, Colin.
Yep, I didn't even know. We do we press record?
At one point or another, yes, we did.
Yeah. Just a simple chat about everything going on in the world of SaaS and SaaS ops. So yeah, certainly people should look at their logs to see where AI
People are signing
platforms are being
into.
used. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then have an acceptable use policy, sensible conversations. Talk to your
Yeah.
partners, Google
Keep
Workspace or
your
Office 365.
keep your ears and eyes open, right? When you talk to your users. That's
Yep.
the easiest way to find out what they're doing is just to talk to them.
Yeah. Great, Rose. Good to chat with you again.
Yes. Thanks, Colin.